good at it today. Let's see.
Okay, so there seems to have been some uh, confusion on the house numbers for each site. What do we have here? 972.
Nope. I think 892 is first. Yes, it's a little confusing because there are two presentations we're making, and they're in different stages, but both very preliminary. And they're on the same block, and they're a block away from each other, and they're different stories. So I think 892, the one that I was able to successfully share, is what was on your agenda first, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. So the very first thing I want to say is thank you for making the time for all of us. It's an absolute pleasure to see the leadership that's been taken on at the community level throughout the city for the last 7 or 8 months, and that continues to go on. And your community board has been no different in that respect. It's really been impressive, and thank you for making the time. I've watched big agencies in the city struggle while the community boards seem to have gotten their act together, which is very impressive. And thank you for making the time. My name is Eric Palatnik, and I am here. I know a lot of people I saw on the call that I recognize, and I'm here on behalf of David Chin, and David is on the call as well, and Raymond Chan is his architect, to discuss with you a proposal. It's not a ULURP application yet. We hope it would be. We recognize that there's been a lot going on in your neighborhood, and that we're coming in after a lot of things have happened around what we're asking you to do. But I'm here to tell you that many of you know me for 2 decades, and David is a different type of developer than most. He didn't start off to be a developer. It's a happy accident. And he's been in the neighborhood for years, decades, as a business person, and he's anxious to explore and accommodate any creative ideas to create something here. So he's coming to you right now, recognizing that there are very specific desires and goals and asks that people may want to see, and that there's a history that we're in the middle of. And we don't mean to be disrespectful of that by asking you. We're hoping actually that we could take it to the next step and to create what you've already done. Because I met Ethel just before, I've known her for years, but we met just before the pandemic. And she introduced me to what you've been doing with your restrictive declarations and the RFA. And I found that to be very creative, because it's a problem I've been confronting in land use applications all over the city, is a way to accommodate everybody's desires. And I was very impressed that that's what you've done. So that is the backdrop. That's how we're coming to you. My name is Eric Palatnik, and we're here in a preliminary fashion. David owns the site, so you see there labeled site. It's, of course, on the Bergen. You can see the location of it. It's between Bergen and Grand, and you all know that it's adjacent to a residential district along Classen Avenue. It's a conglomeration of properties that are identified here. The businesses that are in place. One is David's, which is an import-export business. The other ones are a party rental business and a restaurant, a food restaurant supply. You can imagine.
Excuse me for a second,
Yeah.
Eric. Can you put your screen in presentation mode? And I would ask Miss George or Ms. Neal to set people who are joining the meeting to mute on entry, so we don't get the beeping and the clicking for everyone who's joining as they come in. And whoever's typing, if we could get that noise quieted. Well, please proceed, Mr. Palatnik.
Okay, I hope that helped. I don't know what presentation mode is, but I made it bigger, so I hope that helped.
Okay.
I'll learn about presentation mode after.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
You all know the neighborhood better than I. You know that we are in a manufacturing zoning district, and right across the street, to the south of us on Bergen, is of course a residential district. And you can see that there's a school and the yard and the residential buildings, and you know that. I'll scroll through what we're asking you permission to build. I'll get to the end of it so you could see. And then I'll back into the proposal, back into the presentation. Give the computer a second. What we're asking you to let us build is this. 2 buildings. which would be one. Let me get to a good picture here for you. Here. Okay, you should be able to see that, showing you two buildings. The top portion is the portion before that I was showing you on Bergen. The bottom portion is on Dean. The thinner portion is the thinner portion is on Bergen. The thicker portion is on Dean. I get a little mixed up. It's proposed to construct or allow for an R7A MX district that you could see right there in the middle. It says roof over 1-story commercial light manufacturing. We've of course been students of what you've been doing in the neighborhood and what the uses that you're trying to attract, and we're committed to try to do that. The buildings you can see here are proposed to be 7 stories in height. Again, recognizing and reading and learning and studying what you've been doing in the neighborhood with a limit of 9 stories. So we came in at 7 stories, but it's 85 feet because we are providing a very decent first floor ceiling height, which I'll show you in a second. That would accommodate, of course, the restricted floor area uses. This screen here, if I could scroll over a little bit, maybe get the whole thing on there for you, shows you the building sort of it does show you in a cross section. And this shows you the buildings on each side of would be one, of course, would be on Dean Street. That would be a wider building because Dean Street has 445 feet of frontage. The property on Bergen Street has less frontage, and that would be thinner in size. But the end result would be they would share a common ground floor that would go through the block. So when you got inside, it would go right through. So it really gives a nice big floor plate, gives a nice big open area for people to work and get things done. And I think achieve a lot of the uses that you're trying to see attracted, I think could fit nicely in a space like this. 23-foot high ceiling heights. And then above it, of course, we have the requested residential. If it were to be approved, and I know it's a big if, it would create a substantial number of units. The total number of units would be 274, 69 of which would be affordable. And I haven't even explored with David, who's the owner, working maybe with different programs at HPD, because everybody in the city who's in housing should be thrilled that HPD restored quite a few bucks to their budget last week. And that opens up a lot of opportunities for more affordable housing. We're committed to a deep affordability level. If you ever have somebody come in front of you that tells you they don't make money off of affordability, the deep affordability level, option 1, is what in fact does create actually a more value for a property owner, believe it or not. They do better. They make more money. So we're happy to come in with the MIH program with a higher level of affordability. We're happy to explore different creative ideas to add even more affordability to it, recognizing that we are still, of course, have to substantiate an investment if you would even let us build it. But that's basically the overview to what we're asking you for. The rest of the presentation takes you through the neighborhood, which you probably know better than I do, but I'll give you just 2 minutes of the maps so you can see the maps at least and understand what we're asking you for. And then I could show you what we've learned and what you already know to be the case of the buildings around you that have been rezoned, or the properties, I should say.
Can you just repeat the proposed number of affordable units?
Yeah, 69 is the number of affordable units. And again, we have a cheat sheet we could share with you after the hearing, and we're taking notes also. So if you're making yourself mashugana, getting all the information, we have everything written down, and we can provide more in writing afterwards, so that you don't have to keep track. If I tend to talk like the guy in the FedEx commercial years ago. So with that as the backdrop, these are the maps that we're asking you to change. The left side is the existing. The right side is the proposed. And you can see there, right in the middle, where it says Dean Street on the left, you could see that our property is M11. It says it right in the middle between Dean and Bergen. And the right side is the same map. And instead of saying M11, it says M14/R7A. You'll notice on that map, of course, to the diagonal to the right is the other rezoning that I just spoke about, Pacific, which created the CBA that I'm very impressed with, which is, you know better than I do, which created the MX district, which is what we're modeling ourselves after, because we're watching what you're doing, and we're hoping you'll let us do the same thing. David is anxious to do this because it's not easy to make a buck there. It wasn't easy to make a buck with the properties before this happened, and it's harder now. For him, his import-export business, things have really shifted. Everything has moved over to Kennedy Airport. There's a lot more distribution going on over there, and he needs to be closer to airports. And for the other businesses that are nearby that he's got in the spaces, these people are really not in the right spot for what they're doing. And everybody that's involved with this is telling David that either they'd be happy to keep some of the space in where they are right now if he gets the approval, because the MX allows for it, but they're also happy to relocate because they're there by happenstance, not because it's necessarily the ideal location for anybody. None of these businesses need to be there, and they don't employ that many people. They're mostly distribution companies, which involve truckers and a couple of people driving forklifts. They're not really jobs, I think, that I would be after, and I don't think you're after. But having said that, we'll keep going, and I would love to hear your opinions. This map is a great map because, it's recognizing what's going on around us. It recognizes what you've rezoned. You could see it in the peach color, and you could see it in the purplish color. What you've done in the past and what you created. These are just in the last couple of years. I know you worked really hard. I read about everything. I saw some of the hearings, and I've spoken to people, and I know you're trying to create something. And I can't emphasize enough. We're here to recognize that and try to create something with you. This just gives you the idea of what you've created, but for those who are not aware of it, showing you the idea of the M Crown concepts and maps and things that have been created by you that have set a framework for what we're all trying to do. We've all watched what you've done for decades. We've all been a student of what you've been doing. I can't say it enough because your neighborhood is such a critical neighborhood, I think, to New York City, and it is so blossoming and continues to blossom every year. And I respect what you're trying to do. I know you've held a close view of your community through the years to make sure that what gets created is within your vision. So this map is a nod to that, to try to show you how we are not ignoring your vision, and hopefully we're settling in with it to some extent. And the rest of the maps just give you technical maps of tax maps and whatnot. So that's the application. I'll just leave it on some pictures. Maybe I'll go up to, I'll see if I can find some pictures for you. I know we had some at the beginning. Let's maybe go through that for a second. Started the pictures just to refresh everybody's memories. If you haven't been out for a walk on the block, it's not the best looking block in New York City, and I say that with a lot of love. I don't own any property, but you can see View 1 on the right side. What David owns is really a vestige of years gone by. Obviously, there were, the building in the middle is a taller building, was created for something. I don't even know the history of it. You probably do. But that's the property on the right-hand side. The view on the left is across the street. On the right side of the page is across the street. View 4 here in the top left shows you a clearer picture of the site. Excuse me. David does his best to keep it clean. You can see it's got new sidewalks in place. Roll down gates are in good order. The brickwork, he tries to maintain it and point it. You can see he's patched and fixed where he can. The graffiti blossoms as it does, and he tries to cover it up as soon as it comes up, and then it comes up again. But he does his best. That's the other lot. You can see it. It's in good shape, and it's a newer building. Across the street, of course, you have ironically, I mean, you're talking about the diabetes and dialysis center across the street. And my condolences or my sympathies to the person in the family that you mentioned earlier. And here's more images. The next few shots will take you around the corner and take you over to Bergen Street, which you know better than anybody is another world. Left and the right side, north and south side of Bergen Street is literally the dividing line, and has been for a while. Hopefully we can do something that helps encourage something that you want to see there. And view 18 is my favorite picture of all, because in the middle of everything I just showed you, that's a real urban condition. You've got a beautiful beautiful piece of land that's been like that as far as I can remember back. I think 30 years. It struck me as being there. I'm sure it's been there longer. That is what we are asking you to do. We're here to hear your opinions, your thoughts. We've met with city planning. We've only met with city planning to make sure it was something that they might be going along with, but we haven't gone any further than meet with them. That's why we come to you now. So we haven't done anything. We're here tonight with open ears, and hopefully we could start a conversation. So that's my presentation, and thank you for giving us the time to talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Palatnik. And you mentioned a couple of times that you're aware of the community board's request to city planning for neighborhood rezoning. Was that discussed in your meeting with city planning?
That was not discussed in my meeting with city planning, primarily because it was sort of the proverbial elephant in the room. They didn't bring it up that it was something they were doing. And I started with hair years ago. You all were my first community board meeting ever. And this discussion has been going on since I started. So, and you've all lived there longer than I've been practicing, which is 25 years already. So I didn't bring it up. Winston Von Engel did not introduce it, nor did his staff. And we'd be happy to support an area-wide rezoning and be the impetus for it in one way, shape, or form. We're not opposed to that, to being involved with you and teaming with you. We're happy to be involved in a discussion.
Okay, so I need to find out if any of the committee members have questions on your project. Committee members, do we have any questions for Mr. Palatnik while we have him? You want to put your questions in the chat?
Ethel, I have a couple of questions if we have time.
I know this is Mr. Vicconi, and I was waiting to hear your questions. Please proceed.
First question is, I just want to make sure that I understand all the lots that are involved here.
Yeah. Sure.
So we're on block 1141, and
here, hold on. I'll make it easier for you. I'll get to the map so you don't have to guess.
Okay.
It. Just give me a second. I'm not. Here, this one shows it as good as anybody. Here you go.
Okay, so I think, I'm just going to read these off and you tell me if I'm missing anything. We're talking about lots 28, 33, 37, 38, 39, 40, 50.
No 40.
No, 40 is not there. Okay. 61 and 59.
Bingo.
Okay, great. So you have the total lot area is like about almost 80,000 feet.
I wrote it down beforehand, and now I can. No, it's 40,645.
How much?
It's well Let me explain. Hold on one second. The lot area is different from the rezoning area. So this is the site. So let me scroll up. What you're looking at right here is this lot area. Okay, so this lot area is a 10,000 square foot lot, 11,000 square foot lot. Yeah, 40,645 square feet are these lots.
For that, I just added up all of the numbers on all of the square footage on Oasis, and I get a number that's a lot bigger than 40,000.
Maybe the architect can clarify for me. I apologize. And let me double check my zoning analysis and see if I'm reading something wrong.
So, for instance, I get lot 28 is like 35,556. Lot 33 is 25,480. Those are, I mean, there's some pretty good sized lots.
Raymond Chan, if you're on the phone, maybe you could help me out because I'm reading your zoning analysis and I see what, well, 54,
No,
20.
no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Never mind. Forget it. I picked the wrong number. You're right, and I'm wrong.
Okay, that's okay. I'll take that.
I'm
I'm usually
Bear
wrong.
with me a second. Yeah, I just wanted to get to the total lot area here.
It's 40,000. I did the math beforehand. I just lost that number again. 40,645.
Yep. Okay. Now we're in agreement. Okay. So, and you're gonna have total coverage at the first floor.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you thought of, I mean, as you know, the community board is looking for restricted uses for promotion of the M Crown uses that it deems to be job creating. What have you given any thought to what percentage of the ground floor you're proposing to dedicate to those uses?
Well, I understand that we're restricted to 25%, but we've talked about it. And given what is in the building right now and what David is trying to create here, I think we could even do better than the 25% use. Because, I mean, he's pretty consistent with some of the businesses that are there now with the 25%, and he'd like to expand on that. So I think that that's something we'd want to start to talk to you about and see what you're seeing in the neighborhood, what's growing. I know David has been working very closely with an agent in the neighborhood who's very active with a lot of the people that are coming in to do business and are looking for these new modern buildings to do it in with big floor to ceiling heights, clear spans, well ventilated, well lit, cellar space for storage, that kind of stuff. So, and David is he's on the phone now. That's his roots. He came to America. He's an immigrant originally, and he came here and built his business. And he bought this property with the vision of building his business, not with developing it. He never thought he would be on this call right now. That wasn't in the game plan 25 years ago when he started. So that's the spirit of the development. So I guess I don't know your role. We've never met before, but if you're involved in these businesses, we'd like to talk to you more, I guess.
Okay, and you're planning on seeking an MX with M14 and R7A. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Once again, you said the total number of units of residential units you have.
The total residential that's just penciled out now because this is just you've seen the plans level. It could probably accommodate about 274. 7 stories tall, about 274 units. So it's a lot of units can get built with a lot of affordable units. I mean, nearly 70 affordable units. And again,
what is the average size of the 274 units you're anticipating? The average.
Peter Raymond, did you do any sort of calculations on your unit density when you came up with these numbers, or did you just? I'm looking here, number of units.
It's Raymond. Yeah, we're actually using the zoning code right now, which is 680 square foot per unit. So some unit will be bigger, some unit will be smaller, but averaging out is about 680.
Yeah, but the better number might be for you to go with, because that number on the units, we haven't really fleshed it out because I don't know what your desires are. Sometimes they'll go into community and they'll say they want to see more larger units and they want to see more smaller units. That's part of this conversation. But just so you know, there's nearly 190,000 square feet of floor area available. Excuse me, of residential floor area. Yeah, 186,000 square feet of residential floor area. So we have floor area to create most configurations that you would want to see of the unit mixes.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. I'm sure you have other questions. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of preliminary, but I mean, one of the things I want to highlight that I think we'd have to think about in supporting something like this is that I would expect that the zoning boundary that DCP would want to see here would extend to Classen Avenue and take in that block face on Classen Avenue. And you know, while I'm just thinking out loud here. I mean, what that would do is, you know, the idea that we could get that you're interested in accommodating the M Crown uses on the ground floor is good. Unfortunately, right now, as you mentioned, our only tool to accommodate something like that and have the binding is the type of structure that we recently did with Grand and the Grand Pacific rezoning. My concern here is that I think your zoning boundary would end up extending to Class and Avenue, and we would have no mechanism to get the same type of commitment from the other properties around you. And I just think we'll have to think about that. I mean, you know, you had mentioned you're potentially interested in going above what we have sought in terms of use restrictions, and maybe, you know, we would be more comfortable. I don't know. I mean, it might be possible for us to get more into your building to make up for what we would not get in the other sites that would be taken into your rezoning. That's just a thought.
So, and I'm glad you said that. And let me just toss one idea back at you, which is, I don't know what's driving the thought that we would have to go to Classen, because as I mentioned, when we did sit with city planning, we met with them before you, and this is the map that came out of that. So I don't know if city planning would force us to go to Classen, or if it's something that you would desire to see, but they wouldn't be, and that's what I'm just throwing that out there.
So that you think that they would be willing to just rezone the lots you control?
Yeah, we talked about that for a little while during our meeting with them. That was what, unfortunately for Ethel, they did not speak about your desire to rezone the entire neighborhood, but they did speak about where they wanted to draw the lines here. So that this was done with their input. So if your concern is that they might force me to bring the line to Classen, that might not be the case. Maybe they just didn't realize it when we spoke the first time, or maybe it didn't. You know, maybe they'll rethink it, because that happens sometimes when it goes through other people. But as of now, this is what we've created.
It's been our experience with the other rezonings in the zone. But yeah, no, I see your map, and so it looks like it looks like that map goes beyond lots that you control, but not onto the lots on Classen Avenue.
For the most part, I get a little messy in my calculations here, but it does over. We don't have 400 feet on the Bergen Street side. Hold on, let me just. You know, we only have on both sides. We have 95 feet on the Bergen Street side, and we have 275 feet on the Dean Street side. So you can see here the map extends further. So I don't know if we did. I was trying to study this before because I thought you might ask this. I don't think we did an overlay map that shows you what's in and what's out on this map, which would really help you. But that was part of the discussion with city planning. I remember of getting to this width of 445 and 400. So it would take in other lots that don't include just ours.
Right.
And I'll get you more clarity on that, so you can see it now that I see what you're trying to focus on.
Yeah, it
so
looks like
map.
Right. I mean, it looks. I have to guess because the map doesn't show the lots, but it looks to me like it probably goes to the lots that front Classen Avenue, but doesn't include them.
Right.
So it looks like there's a couple. The other lots would be lots to the east that you don't control. I think that it looks like it's drawn around the lots on the west. It looks like it's drawn along the lots you control.
Yes.
Eric, do you mind if I say something real quick?
Oh, please, Austin. I was about to mention Austin is, in addition to being the scribe, the cartographer. He wears a few hats. So go on, Austin.
Yeah, no, I just was going to say that if you go to the photographs page, any of them, you can see a bit more of what the project area would be. I know the lot numbers aren't on the key map, but you can at least see that second outline.
So this map.
Right. Eric, so we could probably do what we did for Monitor Street, where we put the labels on the lots or something, we could do that.
Yeah, and if you could do that and match them with photos, maybe go with a photo of each lot so I can give it back to Vic that sort of
Yeah,
shows it clearly.
so I'm looking at, right now, I'm looking at page 21 of your deck. And your lots are outlined in red, in a broken red line. And it looks to me like the lots to the east are part of the zoning map, but they don't go up to Classen. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we usually outline it in red with the red dash line because that's what DCP, those
Right.
are like their standards
right.
on.
So it looks like your zoning area would take in lots 40, 41, 56, 55, 57, and 58, which are on Bergen Street and Dean Street, but not Classen Avenue.
I'll double
So
check that.
I think that's, yeah, from our end, that's definitely worth a conversation with city planning. But okay, I understand. I think just to confirm that, but I think I understand what the intention is.
All right. And by the way, I was dyslexic a moment ago. I told you Vic. I mixed up Gibb and Vicconi. I apologize.
That's all right. I've been called worse.
I apologize.
Other committee members with questions?
Yeah. Just to clarify, we're not voting on this rezoning application right now. This is just a preliminary discussion.
Yes, this is a pre-ULURP Uniform Land Use Review Procedure discussion.
Okay,
And
great.
I'm pretty sure you recall that we have the M-Crown proposal
Yes.
on hold for lack of budget funding. And unfortunately, we have people who are anxious to proceed, as Eric opened up with saying it's been a while since we've been looking at this process. When we started this process, our current Attorney General had the position of council member for this district. And she was beating the bushes for money to do the environmental studies that would need to be done for a neighborhood rezoning. But I'm taking up your question time. Once you finish with your question, get an answer, I want to ask Mr. Plotnick about the environmentals that would be required for his process. What was there before in particular? But go ahead, Ms. Laser.
Thank you. Thanks. So I am a member of the community board, but also a member of the Crown Heights Tenant Union. And I'm a tenant. And so I am very glad that you mentioned that the MIH option you're focusing on is option one, the deep affordability option.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know if this is so much well, I do have a question about the expected affordability of the other units that would be likely to be built, but definitely I would say there would be more support for the deeper affordability, right? Just as you said.
Yeah.
And I guess I would also say that the tenant union membership, and also just a lot of people who you will talk to in the neighborhood, will tell you that part of I guess when you're making decisions about the unit size, there's some concern that a lot of the housing that's being built in Crown Heights is not necessarily conducive to people trying to build roots in the community, build families, people who are intending to stay for the long term. So the more that the units built can be of the type that, that people could envisage living in for a very, very long time, would be, you would get a more positive reaction with those.
I'm glad you said that, because what we've been doing, I've been doing this for, as I said, a long time, and and we know that in order for buildings to be successful, just the building has to be able to accommodate people at various stages of their life. So I think what you've witnessed and what you've seen is probably smaller units, I think, that don't let a family grow in place, because a lot of these apartments are families that are coming into place, or they're not built for seniors, which is another opportunity when you talk about. I don't know how much you're trying to accommodate affordability for seniors, but the city offers an heirs program, which is a very good program to explore that we could talk about, that offers age income restricted units. But all these things you're talking about, we think make for a better building. And you'll meet a gentleman that we're working with who's been studying the marketing for the building to understand it a little bit. And now that we see if we have a little bit of traction in it, we can start to pencil out what it's going to look like with the input of you and the person that we're working with, and start to give you back some numbers so you can start to see what things are going to cost. We'll have a better understanding of what we're going to be able to build, and then we can figure out what it's going to cost. So we could get to that point with you and include you in the conversation. Of course, ultimately, the market rate apartments are going to be market rate. I mean, that's the nature of market. But I think what we can really control is the affordability component, and give you an estimate or a guesstimate of where the market rate apartments are going to be. We are building, and what I keep trying to say is we're building for the neighborhood. We are not trying to create something that is not a product for the community, especially in light of COVID. We think that people are staying where they are, and they want homes, and they want those homes comfortable. And we don't bet on a migratory pattern, I think, that you used to see in the past as much. So that's what we're coming to this with, in that attitude. So thanks for your input, Sarah.
I have a question.
Yes, who's speaking, please?
Yeah, I'm Albert Appleton.
Please proceed.
You said that the M Crown was on hold for lack of funding.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have any idea of like when that would start to commence again, right? Like maybe next year, like end of next year or 2022. Do we have any type of lead on that?
I think we're looking at fiscal year 22. I'm not sure.
Okay. And my next question is, you mentioned that you were submitting a ULURP application. I noticed on the tabs on the screen, I see 892 Dean Street, I see 922, I see 972 and 974. Are you submitting a ULURP application for multiple lots?
No, it's a big coincidence. What happened is right after David called me, the next person I'm going to represent in the next application has got an existing warehouse building down the block. Mr. Jeffers, who's on the phone with us right now, he called me. So ironically, they both called me within like weeks of each other, and it just made, so they're both at the same exact stage where they're both sitting with these properties for years and they don't know what to do. So that's why you're seeing them both. I'm glad that's all I had up there, and I didn't have anything else up on the screen.
Okay, right. So like the reason why I asked that is because I'm the owner of 863 Dean Street, right? So I know usually when you submit a ULURP application, sometimes it's advantageous to try to get as much lots as you can. Would it be to our advantage to add more to make the ULURP application more feasible to actually go through? And, if we added like another lot to the application, like 860.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation. And I'm not the guy really that makes that decision. Everybody on this call is with the input of city planning. But I'm Googling you right now to see exactly where 863 Dean is. And that's a conversation for you and the board to have, and tell me what you want to see. Let me see. I'm getting my bearings here for a second. Yes, you're literally right next door. So So if I go, hold on.
Across the street.
Right.
Yeah, you're on the other side of the street.
Across the street.
So it wouldn't be contiguous.
Across the street.
Oh, it wouldn't be continuous. Okay, it's a whole different.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a whole nother can of worms. But that's that's the problem that the board has been talking about. And I think that's what you've all been grappling with for years, is to try to do it comprehensively. And that's the point you're raising, is that if you own that piece across the street, you're probably struggling. Let me see if I can get a picture. You're probably struggling like everybody else is over there.
Yeah,
trying to
like
figure out
everybody else
what
is
to do with it.
basically. Right.
This
Yeah,
is
they should tell you. You should.
Okay, everybody can't talk at once. We have seen
Ms. Tyus,
rezonings where the sites are included across the street, but that's not here or there. I believe Mr. Ellis has something to add to this discussion. Please go ahead.
yes, just one concern I have in requesting any large format apartments is the trend that we've seen somewhat, especially in Crown Heights, is developing or redeveloping buildings to include I forget what the term is, almost like dormitory style living, where it's 3 or 4 bedroom units and there are multiple leaseholders would be in that same unit. I think what Ms. Lazar was speaking about larger format apartments to accommodate families and growth is really an interest, is of interest to myself, especially, and probably many others, to help families in the neighborhood instead of small format units. But the concern I have is if it's designed to have multiple large format units, the idea of them not being kind of dormitory out with multiple leaseholders per unit is something I want to make sure, because that then itself leads to the same concern that we have, that they're not invested community members, and there's a lot of turnover and low investment in the community well-being with those type of tenants. So flagging that, Mr. Blacknett, as something that we would want to make sure that wouldn't be the stuff.
I heard somebody tapping on the window. I didn't know.
Ms. Tyus,
I'm sorry?
Ms. Tyus?
Bye.
Ms. Tyus,
Yes,
you are audible to the rest of us.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. So that was one thing I wanted to just flag, Mr. Platnick, that we might want to just continue seeing ways to address and prevent that from happening. The other thing, if the board were also in favor of that. The second thing I would be interested in exploring with you, and I'm not very familiar with this, and maybe this is a larger conversation for our housing committee, as well as potentially others that might have interest, is the concept of potentially rent to own or low affordable ownership programs for some of these units. With 200 plus units in a building, can some of them not be potentially in a route for ownership opportunities or condos?
You like unicorns. That's only happened once in New York City so far. It's happened in the Bronx, and it was a hell of a lift for them. But
don't we have precedent in our neighborhood in CBA with some of the projects on the buildings on St. Mark's or Bergen Street that I think were developed for ownership or affordable ownership?
Are you talking about St. Mary's Hospital?
No, further west, closer to Prospect Heights. I don't remember. It might be between.
Maybe it's happened once. I'm all game for that. I believe in that. I think the affordability is bogus when it's rental. I think the only way to really bring people up in society is to give them a chance to own their home. And just renting is renting. I mean, I don't care if you're renting affordable or you're renting market rate. You're still renting. Not that there's anything wrong with being a renter, but if you want to own, it's a nice to have a path. So I
challenge you, Mr. Palatnik, and your colleagues that you're representing to explore maybe a possibility of that way. If that's the impetus of this conversation today, is to kind of look at options and opportunities and things like that, then maybe there's a chance that this large building, this large footprint that you're speaking of could potentially accommodate something as unique and unicorny as what we're talking about.
Yeah, listen, it might be able to, and it's a big project, and it's a big development, and it's got an opportunity, and I agree with you. So I said that at the beginning, and I meant it. So I will explore it. We'll look at what's been done in the city already, and I'd like to engage and continue a conversation with you, James, on that point, and with each of you that have raised points. And like I said, we'll only be successful.
I can't hear. It's distracting over Mr. Platnick. Sorry. Can you say that again, Mr. Platnick?
I was going to say we'll only succeed if you support us. So these ideas that you had with restricting the use so that you don't have a dormitory type of use, we're all for that. That's not what we're after here. And if we can create an affordable program that does have a home ownership component, we'll start that discussion with HPD. We're going to be winding our way through city planning for a number of years. So we've got some time to sit and talk with HPD, and we're happy to do that. And you carry a lot of clout because this goes back to the beginning, and I'm not blowing smoke up all of you. You should know that the restrictive declarations that you're willing to create are groundbreaking because they allow a developer to figure out what they can do, and they can agree to you, and you can get what you want. So everything you're saying right now, if we study it and it makes sense for us, we're on board with it also, and we're happy to memorialize it the way you want to memorialize
it would be nothing more spectacular than being one of the first pioneers and of doing such a thing and creating a model that makes sense and is profitable for both developers and all that stuff. So I challenge you that, Mr. Palatnik and your team, and I will now give back.
Who else on the Land Use Committee has questions? And if none, we'll go on to the next.
Ethel, if I could, I'm sorry, I wanted to just jump in with a couple of responses.
Yeah, Mr. Gibb, I just want to say there was a question in the chat, Ms. Tyus, as well, that you need to address.
I'm sorry, I know at least one building on Washington Avenue that's rent to own. That's from Sarah. Okay, you have, Ms. Zalou, do you have a house number for that building on Washington? It's not our community district, as far as I know.
No, I don't think I had a question. I think it was higher up in the chat that somebody had a question. Maybe it was Tasha Young's question.
I'm not seeing this.
I could read it out. The question from Tasha Young was, hello, everyone. Who are you working with to market deep affordable housing? And that's Tasha from Lori Cumbo's office.
Thank you.
We have not teamed up with anybody yet. Thank you, Tasha, for asking us, and tell Councilwoman Cumbo we all thank her because she's, of course, doing a great job leading everybody. We don't have an affordable partner yet. We're happy to start that conversation. We were going to come to your office next after we spoke with the community board because we didn't want to put you in the awkward position of seeing something before the community board saw it. So we would love to come and sit with you if that's okay and go through things with you.
Thank you, Mr. Palatnik. Appreciate that. Ms. Young, do you have any other questions for Mr. Palatnik? And then we'll go to Mr. Vicconi after Ms. Young asks her questions. You can unmute yourself. Can she unmute herself?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Remember, she had to leave at 7, so she's not on the call anymore.
Okay, thank you. All right, now I think it's
me?
Mr. Vicconi,
Hello?
and then there was someone speaking. Who is that speaking?
This is Lucian Allen, also from Majority Leader Cumbo's office.
Okay, so you're speaking for Ms. Young. Go ahead.
Yes. I'm sorry, and you, if she didn't have any other questions besides that, but I was hoping to get a copy of the presentation if this is possible, just so we can have it for our records.
Yeah, definitely. After this meeting, we will actually reach out to you to maybe ask for another call with you, with your office, if that's okay. And we'll also send over to you a copy of the presentation.
Definitely. Okay. That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. So I think Mr. Vicconi is next.
Yeah, so I wanted to make two comments and then a suggestion. The first comment regards trying to get other lots into this rezoning. I think doing that presents challenges for the community board in this context, unless all of the owners are interested in making the same kinds of commitments for restricted use. We had a little bit of an experience with that on Grand Pacific where we tried to bring other owners and it was difficult, and it ultimately didn't work out. So I think that right now it's possible to do, but I think it makes doing this type of a project for the community board more challenging. And the second comment I wanted to make was about affordable home ownership. I don't know that to be compatible with MIH. I don't know there to be any MIH options that support home ownership. It might be, possible, but I don't know that. Maybe Mr. Palatnik does from the Bronx, but the units that Mr. Ellis mentioned on Bergen Street and St. Mark's Avenue in Prospect Heights were built long before MIH in a time when there were a different set of subsidies. So I'm not sure how possible it is to apply other subsidies that are home ownership to lots that are rezoned under MIH, which I believe are required to have affordable rental units. So now I want to make a suggestion, since it sounds like there weren't more questions to be asked. I would like to suggest.
Gib, this is Kathy Island. Could I ask a question? I don't have a camera. I apologize for interrupting you.
Well, can I just finish what I was saying, though? Since
you were just saying there were no more questions, but yes, I'm happy to wait. Thank you.
Well, why don't you go ahead, and I'll make my suggestion after you're finished.
Okay, audience, I want everybody to recognize that this is not a regulatory item, which we do have on tonight's agenda. Mr. Palatnik is presenting in advance of a hearing, which I think is coming up week after next. And he has one more item that he wanted to share with us in order to get some suggestions on how to improve it in his plan to go forward with a ULURP. So, Mr. Baconi, I'm just reminding you of that. And maybe you would want to let him finish the second proposal and then come back and do a overarching group of recommendations for both of them.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so would you like for me to present the other one?
Would it be appropriate to have Kathy ask her a question?
I'm not sure what happened. Is Ms. Tyus still on?
Yeah, but Ms. Island, can you wait and hear the second item and then ask your question for both of them?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Palatnik.
This is much quicker and shorter. You know the block better than I do. The former Studebaker building that was, I think it was bought or recently sold by WeWork is on the left. This is to the east of us, a couple of blocks. You obviously could see Class in there on the right side, Bergen above you. The owner is on the phone with us right now. You heard him earlier. It's Oswald Jeffers and Florian Phillips. They've been community members for years, have lived in the community and work in the community. And this building was, I think, a former dairy and is now a warehouse for storage. It rests across the street from a site that you recently rezoned. That's in the lower right corner. And I'll show you that in a second. And it rests next door to a building that years ago you granted a variance to when I represented them. And the one of the people who owned it died and they never acted on it. And that's the building to the right. And you granted a variance to allow for residential. And that has since expired. The owners of this building are on the phone with you right now. They've really struggled with the building for years. The same story you always hear. This is a tougher situation than the last proposal I was presenting to you, in the sense that it doesn't create, it doesn't take up that much area. It's just one building with a footprint of 54 by 100. It may be better suited for a variance than a rezoning, but we're bringing it in front of you right now, and I appreciate the time, simply to present it to you because Mr. Jeffers and Mr. Phillips would enjoy the chance to redevelop it with something productive there. If it can't be that it's for residential, maybe it could be to add more commercial space onto the building. They're in an M11 zone with only a 1 FAR allowed. The building is built to a 2.8 now, but maybe if they were able to go up, 3 stories on top, and they could build some type of viable office or M Crown type of uses like you see next door. But that's why we're coming to you. We just wanted to have a conversation. We recognize your time is tight, and thank you. And I'll just show you here. You know the block better than I do, so I'll just scroll down and I'll pause it right here. And that's our conversation, really. I gave you a whole presentation, but I don't think I need to show you much more than this. So this could be a little bit of a briefer conversation. I don't want to monopolize your evening, but we were hoping to get your thoughts, see if you had any thoughts to this block or what you'd like to see there. We don't have plans created. They haven't done anything yet. It's really very preliminary. And that's it.
Any questions on 972, 974 Dean Street? Well, this has been
Ms. Torres, this is Kathy Island. May I ask my question now?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for the presentations. I just have a question that pulls the lens back a little bit as we're all reacting in real time to the new time frame that may be coming up for M Crown. And as a land use committee member, are we now considering the possibilities of taking individual applications? We have not had a time to discuss this as a committee with the different timing for M Crown. And I understand that this is news that we're all processing together, but it is interesting that we've had these two presentations about what is effectively individual applications when we had worked carefully as a committee to hear over the last 2 years or so that that was not what was optimal for the neighborhood. That's my question. Thank you.
I do believe that we had some meetings with city planning discussing the cutback in the budget. And they are still in the process of doing community outreach. In fact, we have dates coming up where they're proceeding with this community outreach for M Crown under the assumption that it will eventually be funded, but they're not sure now. And their excuse for entertaining private applications as we go through this period of unconfirmed funding. I think we have 2 meetings coming up. The dates slip away from me now. They're early December. Ms. George, do you have those dates on your calendar?
One's December 14th. I'll get the other one for you.
Okay, so we do have those coming up, Kathy, and everything is a toss-up. And I did want to close out on these 2 presentations by reminding private applicants that to build to the maximum ROI that they'd be seeking, they will be planting their feet on ground infrastructure that is likely not going to accommodate what they want to build to the maximum that they may want to build to. So that's the utilities and the city-owned infrastructure. It's not going to be ready. So we're in a conundrum where inputs and outputs from every angle that would provide required infrastructure for a new neighborhood to rise is not going to be in place. So for these private applicants, I would ask that they wait. It's been a long wait. They're going to have to bear the brunt of the cleanup, which is one of the things that's holding back M Crown to do the study and then the cleanup. We're talking a couple $1 million out of city's coffers for this, eight block area. So that's one thing. So Ms. Island, if you don't have another question, I'm going to close out with Mr. Ricconi's comments unless there are other 1 or 2 other comments from committee members. Ms. Island, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
No, thank you. I just think it's an important frame of reference as we listen to these applicants. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Ricconi, do you have a closing statement?
Well, actually, I have a question about, yes, I do. But before I get to that, I have a question about this property, the 972 Dean property. This is a 4-story building that already is, you know, as Mr. Palatnik pointed out, has floor area above what's allowed under the zoning. So it's, you know, it's non-conforming and grandfathered. And I guess my question is, why is this building not possible to be adaptively reused to have some productive uses in it? I mean, we have buildings in the M-Crown zone that are only 1 FAR or vacant lots, and those can be uneconomical, but that's not the case with this building. What's preventing this from being used in an economical way?
There's nothing that's severely restricting its economics other than the substantial risk that needs to be taken on its redevelopment. And it's possible that they might be able to make it work, but it would be more helpful if they were able to get potentially another floor or two on, even for the permitted use, to give them more comfort in taking that risk. So that's where they were coming to. So this proposal is different than the other one in the sense that it's either residential or commercial. They just wanted to talk about it. They've done the numbers on creating. It's not big enough to take the risk that was taken next door on creating that type of office building, and it's not small enough that it's a small investment. You know, so it's in this grayish area. So that's why it's so curt with the presentation, because we don't have a set idea. We're not pleading poverty. We're not saying that there's a big problem necessarily, other than, you know, at what point does the owner take the risk, and this is emblematic of your community, of going into a business decision on it, as opposed to the storage that he's doing now, which is, you know, relatively lowest use he could possibly have there, I think.
Okay, I understand. So here, I guess this is what I would like to kind of propose as a next step. First of all, to Kathy's point, you know, the ULURP process is open to any applicant, and the Department of City Planning, if they get an application from these owners, will move it through the process, and the community board is part of that process. So it's really at the stage when we're reviewing a ULURP application that you know, we decide if it's something that we can support or not. I mean, I think that's really the time that happens. And I think I don't know that we have enough information yet to know that in the case of either of these applications. With respect to the first one, I would suggest the following. You know, if you wanted to sort of drill in a little bit more on what's being proposed here, I would suggest the applicants consider what the deepest affordability they're able to provide would be. Obviously, the community board is interested in deep affordability, and I would recommend looking at MIH option 3 for those units, which is deeper affordability than option 1, and see if that works for you. This was brought up as far as the apartment sizes is concerned. I think the community board would want to see a mix of apartment sizes for affordable that includes larger apartments that can be accessible to families under displacement pressure in Community District A. And then third, I would say consider increasing the FAR for M-Crown uses to make up for the loss of the other lots in your rezoning area that where we would not be able to get I'm assuming we would not be able to get an agreement from those property owners for M-Crown uses. When I did the numbers on those lots and added it, you know, up to yours in terms of to make up for those lots, I think you would be close to, you know, you'd be a little bit over 35% for M-Crown uses on your in your area that would make up for the loss of the ones in the other lots that would be part of your rezoning area. So I would like to suggest that the applicants or the prospective applicants think about those three things and then perhaps come back and have a follow-up with the community board.
Thank you, Mr. Cody. I think we have a closing question from Mr. Ellis, or a closing statement from Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. I just a couple things to kind of echoing a little bit what Gibbs said and what Ms. Island had said. I'm a little bit apprehensive about looking at a single lot currently without having any indication of what's happening with our M-Crown proposal. I think, as a committee, we stood our ground some years ago saying that we did not really want to review single lot variance requests or ULURP applications. This also would be one of them. However, I think that as a committee, knowing that now what we've decided, what we'd like to see as part of M-Crown, if the applicant would want to make a proposal that would stay in line with what we're proposing, maybe that's an opportunity. But I think that's, as a committee, we need to decide if that's something acceptable and what we're doing. I also agree with, I'm sorry, there's some interference. I think I agree with saying that this building seems like it has more opportunity at 972 because of it being above the FAR allowable currently. It also seems to have some sort of historical, value, being it looks like I'm looking at the street thing and it's got an old chocolate company. So there is a manufacturing historical legacy there too, which would be interesting to see it preserved if there were going to be any expansions on it. So I think that just Ms. Tyus as the chair, I would say that we probably need to create some space as a committee to talk about, since we have a bottleneck at city planning on moving this forward as a M-Crown zone. But what is it that we will do and can do for applicants like Mr. Jeffers and others that are coming forward asking about what they could do with their property that may not be the highest and best use for them that fits with our community needs? So that's just what I'd like to share in closing on the thinking of these two proposals that Mr. Platnick has put forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I agree with you 100%. We should map out a time when we can attend to your recommendations. They make a lot of sense. And we need to be able to provide city planning with that type of guidance so they know that we're willing to stay the course and to pressure OMB to fund the project through DCP. So with that said, I have to thank Mr. Palatnik for coming forward and the owners for the buildings for coming forward and sharing their plans with us. I hope you listened closely to the recommendations from Mr. Bocconi, with which I agree with those 100%. And I don't know what your plans are for going forward other than meeting with Council Member Majority Leader Cumbo. I believe Mr. Allen is still on the line. Please keep us abreast of that. And I asked Mr. Palatnik to send the materials over to Council Member Cumbo's office so that she can see for herself what you're trying to bring forward, and maybe even include some of the recommendations that you heard tonight. With that said, okay, with that said, I want to move on to the next item on tonight's agenda. After we do a roll call to ensure that we have a quorum to vote on 875 St. Mark's.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just
next regulatory item. So I want to do a roll call now and see who's here to vote on that. Princess Ben James. How do we get people to respond
Hello?
here?
Can you hear me?
Ms. James is on the line. Thank you. Go ahead. John Buckholz. John Buckholz. Not here. Robert Callahan.
Present.
Janet Collins. Janet Collins, are you here? Are you with us?
She's on the line.
Present. Present.
Thank you. Nora Daniel. I thought I heard a whisper. Nora Daniel? Thank you. You're very faint. James Ellis, I know, is here. Kathy Island, I know, is here. Kevin Farley is excused. Fred Frazier is excused. Najani Granville. I believe I saw her.
She's there.
Yeah, she's just muted, but she's there.
Okay. Zazima Jordan. I thought I saw her too.
She's there. She's muted as well.
Okay. Peter Crassus.
They miss me.
Peter Crassus, was that him?
Peter's on with bad internet service.
Okay.
There.
Sarah Lazar is here. Sherry Norton. Sherry Norton. Robert Puka. Adam Sachs. Meredith Staten. Ethel Tyus, present. Gil Viconi, present. Yrsa Weatherspoon.
Present.
Sharon Wedderburn is excused. Deborah Young
Here.
is present. Thank you. We have a quorum of 1, 2, 3. We have a quorum. We have 14 out of 19. So we will proceed with agenda item 875 St. Mark's Avenue, the Crown Heights North Historic District. The application to legalize work is referenced in the following in landmarks violations, and they're enumerated in the materials in the invitation. And who is present to speak on and present on 875 St. Mark's? Please speak up and give your name and a title.
My name is Guy Cohn. I am the architect for the project, and I will be representing the building tonight.
Okay. Do you have a presentation to make, a digital presentation to make?
Yes, how do I do that? Do I do the share?
I believe so.
Let's see. Share content. Okay. So let's see if this is the right thing here. Okay.
You want to put it in presentation mode so it's big and we just see the particular card in the deck
Okay.
that you're sharing.
So presentation mode would be I see you, I see everybody.
Want to make it bigger?
Let's see, how do I do presentation mode?
I can't tell you from here. I'm so sorry.
Okay, let me see if I can escape from this for a second and let's see if I can do this. Okay, here we go. Participants assigned share. Share content. I thought I was doing that.
We see it small. I can see it very small. Now you're starting to share content.
Okay.
I'm seeing all of your open screens.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
All
This is the
of
first
your-
time I've worked with you guys, and I'm not sure how this works.
Practice makes perfect. I'm sorry we're your guinea pig.
Guys, sorry, this is Dina Shane. I'm one of the owners in the building. I can direct you how to do it.
Sure.
If you click on share,
Okay.
and instead of picking screen, just pick one of the documents. It should be lining up. Like you have options of what you're sharing below, in the row below the screen.
Okay.
So you just select the file that you want to share with us.
Well, that's not the file that I wanted to share. Let's see.
Or you can go to share file and then select the file.
Okay, let's
of your
try that.
computer.
Let's close this and share that. Can you see that?
You're still, you have to stop sharing first because you're sharing your screen right now.
Okay, stop sharing.
Yep, then go
Okay.
back to share.
Now go back to share. Yep.
And then you select the file
Oh,
that
here we
you
go.
want us to see. Just
Okay.
the file, not the screen.
How's that?
No,
Not too far.
you're still seeing the two PDF documents.
Well, let me turn off one of them.
Yeah, close one of them
How's that?
and then enlarge. You have to enlarge, go to full screen on your document. Or enlarge the document.
Okay.
Magnify, just use the magnifying glass at the top.
How's that?
It's still pretty tiny on our screen.
Well, I've got it full screen on mine. I'm trying to, let's see, zoom in.
Would it be better if you just send the presentation in the chat so people can look at it?
Well, I had sent the presentation originally to the community board. I thought maybe I was going to be working with that, but whatever you think would be the best way to do it, I'm happy to do.
Excuse me, this is Lynn Cave. Everybody can enlarge it on their own screen.
Okay.
That's also true.
Okay, good. That works. Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Are we good with that?
We'll have to be if we want to get through this tonight.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. Can everyone see what I'm sharing now?
No, I cannot. It's too small.
Too small.
On the left side of your screen, Ms. Collins, there's a control panel with a plus sign and a minus sign where you can enlarge what's on your screen.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get any larger.
Okay, got it. It works. That's great.
It's already enlarged, and it's still my screen.
I'm sorry. Did you get the materials from the office, Ms. Collins? Can you bring that up on your machine?
Am I the only one that can't see this?
I didn't poll yet. I know I was able to enlarge it on my screen. So.
I mean, I managed to increase the size of everything by using the buttons that are on the left center part of the screen where you. But otherwise,
I just tried something. Did that help anything?
No.
Oh, I see the buttons now. I enlarged. I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohn, can you walk us through your materials?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure how much you know about this building, but I was brought on to this project a few months ago. The original architect of record withdrew from the project a number of years ago. The developer who developed this project started it around 2012. It was renovated and some of the work was done, but not all of the work was done. The current owners of the building bought into the building with the impression that the developer was going to complete everything, get the certificate of occupancy, and he had taken all responsibility for doing that work and seeing it all the way through to the end. However, the company and the developer who started this project went bankrupt. He basically left the project hanging around 2017, and he had gotten a number of landmarks violations while the project was being renovated. So in short, he left the project. He is no longer involved. He's actually left the country. The owners of the condos contacted the Attorney General to try and see what they could do to get some sort of closure from this, but they weren't able to. And there were a number of landmarks violations that were incurred while the project was done, and those were never resolved, and the C of O has also not been completed. So they brought me in a few months ago to try and resolve the landmarks violations and to finalize the C of O. As you can see from the pictures, there are some early pictures, the tax photos of what the building looked like prior to the renovation. And you can see it's really not that much different than what you see now. However, there was a number of things done, such as the windows replaced, repairs done to the front roof, paint that was removed from the front base, some pointing. Generally, the scope of work is outlined. I don't want to bore you with all the various details unless you really would like me to walk you through each one individually. But we're about to submit plans, and we've been in contact with Landmarks to try and rectify all these issues. Now, in some cases, Landmarks is perfectly on board with some of the work that was already done. For instance, the front curved windows, the rounded windows on the turret, they were done properly. There were details that were submitted, and those were done properly. There were a few outstanding items that are still left over, such as a mailbox in the front and a fence in the back addition that are still under discussion. For instance, there are other things like the original bays that were not done the way that the original drawings for the landmarks permits portrayed. So there's basically, I'm trying to give you a broad stroke of, paint the picture in broad strokes as to how this whole thing kind of happened and where we are now. So with that being the case, we've been in discussions with Landmarks to try to resolve some of the issues, to try to find out if Landmarks is willing to accept some of the things that were done differently from what the original permit drawings portrayed. And we're going through the process of going through, there are certain things that Landmarks agreed that they would accept, but there are other things that go beyond the staff level approvals that Landmarks would accept, and that's why we're going through the public hearing process. So with that said, as kind of broad strokes of where we are with this project, the first page shows the pre-renovation photos of the building. You can see, if I can, I'm going to zoom in to details 3 and 4. These are sort of the main bones of contention in this project. These are the best photos we could get. I'm sorry that I can't give you anything better. We did the research. We tried to find out if we could find old pictures, but this is the best we could get. Landmarks provided this to us. You can see that these bays on the side of the building had some pretty detailed stick work, details around the lunette windows and metal paneling on the roofs and some of the overhangs. And from what we can tell, all that was stripped off. So that's one of the main bones of contention here. You can see from, and I'm going to zoom back out here, the views of the building now and what you can actually see and can't see. Those bays are really not very visible. You can see from even across the street, it's hard to see those bays because there's trees in the way, and the church, which is right next door, is very close. So they're not very present. As much as we would have loved to have had those things replaced the way they normally were, we're concerned about the cost and the expense and the disruption of having to rip out what's there and replace it with a very ornate stickwork and metalwork bays. So I'll go back out here for a second and go to page 2. As you can see, there are some details. I have to explain to you that some of the details here are repetitions from the earlier landmark set that was approved and then never completed completely. So I've got details in there from the old landmark set, and I've got details in there from the new landmark set. And the reason being is because I will be superseding the architect of record when I take over this job and I file the continuance of the Alt 1, the alteration type 1, which was the original application to convert this building into condos back in 2013. One of the things that is a little different about this is that we're right now asking to supersede. I've got a letter in, and we've got a request in the building department for me to reinstate the application, the Alt 1, so I can supersede the applicant of record. But the first step for us is to get landmarks and your approval, if you agree with us, to allow us to move forward and present this or get certain things accepted, which were done prior to any of the owners being in the building, and landmarks acceptance as somewhat of a compromise, let's say, to what was originally there. So I just want to walk you through some of the issues that we couldn't get approved at staff level and why we're going to public hearing. One is the mailbox in the front, and I'll zoom in. Can everyone see that picture there?
Yes.
Okay, so the original developer put a mailbox in front that allows packages and larger types of mail to be delivered to the building, because the vestibule was very small and you couldn't put anything larger than a regular small mailbox in there. That's what I'm sort of assuming their reasoning behind that was. And Landmarks changed their rules just recently in their recent reiteration, or their rule changes that allow freestanding mailboxes in certain circumstances. So what we'd like to request from Landmarks and from you is to allow us to keep the mailbox there, especially these days when everybody's getting packages, during the pandemic. You need some place that's secure and that everyone can access and can be locked, and it makes it very difficult, and boxes would pile up in the vestibule. So we're hoping that you will find this less offensive and allow it to stay. The other thing that we are proposing to do, and I don't have a great picture of it except for I'll zoom in. One of the issues was that if you can see down here, I'm not sure if my cursor is showing up on your screen. Hopefully it is. Let's see. Does everyone see my cursor down here?
I can see it.
Okay, good. So one of the requirements of the last permit was to replace these glass blocks with a regular framed window. And we're willing to do that. That's not a problem. That really is a small item. So we've already agreed with Landmarks that we're going to replace the glass blocks with a framed window and keep everything else the way it is. Let me jump over to here. The front area of the yard. The actual front railing is a little different from what was originally portrayed on the Landmarks presentation drawings. It was a little bit more curved. It wasn't a right angle with a curve in the middle. It just had a little bit more gentle slope. So this is what was put in. We don't think it's offensive. We don't think it's too bad. So we're asking Landmarks to approve that. And if you see the light post there, that light post was also one of the items that Landmarks had an issue with, and we're asking them to allow us to keep it because that was not really on the original approved plans. Let me zoom out again here. Sorry, I zoomed in. One of the other issues, let me give you a zoom in on the mailbox again. There's the mailbox. Sorry, when it gets blown up, it gets a little blurry, so I apologize for that.
May I just interject and ask a question on the target occupancy? How many units are you trying to fit into this building?
It's already been occupied since 2013, and the number of units is 7, and it's all owned. There's no construction that we're asking to do on this building. We're asking to legalize the work that was done by the developer who left the project. Okay.
Please proceed. Please
Okay.
proceed.
So one of the other things that was done was that on the original approved drawings for Landmarks, the glass window, the door with the glass window in it was at the front. And the solid door was in the second place in the vestibule. We're asking, they switched it around. We're asking Landmarks to approve it as is. So the framing of the door is very much exactly like the original Landmarks documents showed. It's just that they flipped the glass and the solid doors. So that's one of the other things we're asking Landmarks to approve. And you can see, let me go to the lintel at the front entryway. Zoom over to here. So you can see the lintel with the 875 on it. They kind of mushed the lintel. What can I say? For a better term, so we have agreed to restore it back to its original appearance that looked like the lintel next to it, which was carved out of stone. So we've already agreed to do that work. So I'm just explaining to you some of the things that the developer left the owners of the building hanging with. Let me go on to the next slide. And we get to the bay windows, or the bays. There are actually 3 bays, you can see. We're asking Landmarks to let us keep the bays as they are, not have to rebuild them with the very complex stick details and metalwork and roofs, because it would be so onerous for the building to have to rip that all out at this point, as well as the fact is we don't think it's that offensive looking. The stucco is nice. They put some details. The windows themselves are curved, so the windows comply with the original permit. And the only difference was the stained glass is and I'll take you to the next slide if I can. You can see the comparison of what the original landmark permits showed on the top and what's there now on the bottom. So you can see this first bay had a little bit more detail work. There was more flaring up at the cornice. There was metal panels on the roof. All these were metal panel details, and the stained glass was also more detailed. If you look down below, it's a little bit more simplified. The actual profiles are still there. The windows are in the same place they were. There's a stained glass window at the bottom. It's not as detailed and as beautiful as the original design, but it's what was there. And the same happens with the second bay. You can see the one on top. It's more detailed. It's got a bulge, a flare in the middle, which was kind of nice, but they took that out, unfortunately. But they covered in stucco and they put the windows back, and it's not, I think, all that egregious. The last thing that Landmarks had an issue with was the railing on the back addition. You can see that there. They were okay with the railing being there, but they wanted it set back about 3 feet so it wouldn't be seen from the street. So let me jump back to our first to this picture. Sorry, once again, it kind of got a little blurred when I PDF'd it, and now I'm blowing it up. But you can see that this is the view from the street. I'm going to pull that out slightly. And the railing that Landmarks had an issue with, that they wanted set back, is not even, you can't even hardly see it. Maybe during the winter when the leaves are off the trees, you'll be able to see the railing. But the railing is not, to me, all that offensive. If you'd like to see those, I'd have to, I can open that up. Let me see if I can do that real quick. And then you'll get a better idea of what it is I'm talking about. So let's go to the back here. These are the drawings that I'm superseding the architect of record with and submitting to Landmarks and the building department. And you can see from this slide that this is what's there now, detail-wise. Is that fairly clear for everybody? I'm not sure if I can't see your screen, so I'm not sure. And everybody has different monitors, so that also changes things.
I can see it. Please proceed.
Okay. So in the back addition, you can see the railing. You can see that railing, and it wraps all the way around that back addition. I've got a detail of that coming up. Here, by the way, I'm just going to skip around. This is the stained glass window that's there now. And this is the restored cornice at the front that we're going to duplicate and match the building next door. I'm going to jump back a little bit here. I'm happy to jump back when you'd like. Let me see. I'm going to go. Okay. So the railing that you can see, it's not really, I'm going to take you back to here and zoom in. So the railing is very simple in the back. It's just got vertical pickets. It's got some circles. It's all cast iron. It's and it wraps around the entire back right there. So as I said, the only issue that Landmarks had with this was that they originally wanted it set back about 3 feet so it wouldn't be as visible from the street. But this is what the developer did. They built it all the way around the perimeter of the back addition. Let me go back and zoom out here. So those are the main issues, the one that I was outlining to you. As I said, the notes that I have on here are the same notes that were on the original permit, and we had to put them there because we are now basically legalizing the work that was done. And I would say at this point, probably 60% of the work that was originally permitted and approved was done properly, but you still have these outliers like the bays and the mailbox and the glass blocks and things like, and the front doors. So everything else Landmarks is okay with. And we're coming to you and hoping that you won't find it egregious or offensive and allow us to move forward so that we can get some closure on this project, which has been a source of a lot of anxiety and frustration from the owners because they thought the original developer was going to take care of it and they didn't. And now they're stuck holding the bag. And during these tough times, to have to go back and rip all this stuff out and redo everything would be a very onerous sort of thing to happen and probably make people pretty desperate.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. I'm pretty sure that when the condo, these are condos, correct?
Correct.
Condo owners bought in, they knew that this was a historic district.
Well, if I may address that, Ms.
Tie us together. Mhm.
Okay.
So this is from 2012. Crown
Yes.
Heights North Historic District was in the works,
Mhm.
was designated in 2011. So one of my mantras has been over the years, look before you leap. Okay, so as people bought in, I'm pretty sure they knew it was a historic district. It's not something that happens overnight. And LPC approaches historic district designation in a stepwise manner with lots of notification and outreach to the community. So when people bought in, they knew what they were buying into.
That's true. They did know that, and I'm sure that that was a selling point, and they probably really loved the building. But they also depended on the developer to fulfill his obligations, and they knew that there were violations, but the developer had given them enough evidence that, and said that he was doing it, and he actually did take care of a number of things along the way. But then 2017 came along, and he basically skipped town and left them holding the bag.
You have to keep an eye on what people are doing, especially if you're paying them for the work. With historic district residency, there's an inclusion. There's an obligation that goes along with the benefits.
I agree.
Okay, so I personally am not sympathetic, but I want to hear from the Land Use Committee members on what they've heard from you this evening.
Hi, Ms. Tyus. It's Mr. Ellis.
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, I echo Ms. Tyus' sentiment. This is really disappointing to see this continuously happen in our landmark districts. We hear your plea for correcting, bad activities by developers from the past, but it's still no excuse that we have to suffer as a community the diminishing of our beautiful historic housing stock, and our buildings. And while some of these changes that you saying that you're presenting to us are minor, the nuance impacts and collective impacts of these small little changes really start to degrade some of the holistic integrity of these structures that were developed like this. So that's just kind of from the beginning. And it seems like we hear this all too often where we're asked for forgiveness instead of permission when it comes to some of these buildings. And this building is quite a stellar building. I mean, let's be honest. It's a very unique building. it's got a lot of some beautiful attributes to it. So it's even more disappointing to see that this happened in this way. And I agree with Ms. Tyus that it is incumbent upon the owners, it's incumbent upon any purchasers of these co-ops or condos to know what they're getting into. And while, as I said before, some of these asks that you're presenting today are minor really in individualness, but as a collective whole, it really is disappointing to see. So I'm sharing that just as a concern, as a steward, of our land use and of our historic districts, to whatever degree I can be that person. I'm noticing just a couple things. I'm looking at the Google Street View. You said this development happened in 2013, correct? And there would
I believe it started 2012, 2013. Correct.
So they then knew at the time it was a historic district because it had already been nominated in 2011. So they didn't go through all that to begin with. I'm looking at a Google Street image from August 2014, and it shows a few different things than what you're showing today. The windows hadn't been replaced at that point, because they're still black instead of white. The fence in the front yard was a much lower fence. It looks like it's only like a little white, what do you call those little small? Sorry, it's a little smaller. It's maybe a foot tall off the ground as opposed to what I think you're presenting as a 3 foot tall fence in the front. And obviously on the side, while a lot of times, Landmark doesn't have to deal with side facades or because they're pretty much butted up next to each other. This building is unique because that's got an open space proximate to it. So seeing some of the loss of character on the side of that building is also an issue. And the fact that the stained glass wall was replaced with a much less beautiful one.
Lower quality.
Lower quality, not nearly as ornate, and you lost the characteristic of the half moon portion of what was originally there, from what I can tell in the before and afters. So there's just a lot of qualities to this that it's just unfortunate. I mean, the mailbox. I mean, I don't think that that's an appropriate thing for that front of that building. It could be sidewalk side instead of out front. We've seen plenty of buildings put their mailboxes like those on the sidewalk frontage rather than in front of the building. And then I really don't have much of an opinion on the rear yard railing, just from an individual committee member standpoint. But some of the other stuff that's already been allowable, some of the stuff that you're asking for today, these are just disappointing that we're having to go through this at this point. And the fact it's disappointing that you're now telling us that you're asking for this because of times are tough. And the fact is in 2013, 2014, they weren't tough. And they should have been done the correct way the first time. And so for us to sit there and forgive and nod our heads as a committee to say, okay, it's okay now, it just continues to set precedents. And I just really am disappointed in this. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. You echoed my sentiments very, very clearly. I just want to mention the simplicity of some of these complaints is insulting. Before I go to the Crown Heights North Association, which has championed this area and worked diligently to preserve these beautiful buildings, I just can't understand why it would be such a big problem to switch the doors and put the glass in the front, as most of the houses have them. And at that point, I'll turn it over to Crown Heights North Association. Deborah Young has a comment from that neighborhood association that championed the creation of these historic districts here. Ms. Young, please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Okay, I am not going to take the time to repeat what was already said by Ms. Tyus and Mr. Ellis, because I echo the same sentiments. But there are a couple of things that I take issue with. And one is to have someone come before us and ask for forgiveness and speak to how it's not offensive to them. That's hard for me to accept because you don't live here. You don't own on that block. You're not one of the owners who invested in the community, who worked hard to maintain their homes. So portion, not only you, but any developer who wants to present and ask for forgiveness for things that could have been avoided. Well, I understand that you're not, directly responsible because you didn't do this to begin with. But to come now and say how you don't feel it looks that bad or this doesn't look that bad, it's inappropriate for the people who have to look at this every day. Okay, that's one thing I want to say. The other thing is that, in essence, you did receive the letter that we sent, and we are urging you to make all of the recommendations to as close to LPC as you can to what was originally there. The mailbox is definitely out. That's not something we can support. We'd like you, I didn't realize that LPC wanted you to move the fence back, but we were recommending that if you're going to have a fence, that you do a little more ornamental, make it a little more historically ornamental. And the bays, we want them back to the original design as close as possible. And the windows should be back to their landmark condition. I mean, you have other homes on that block who has maintained. And while you are not responsible, the developer or the owners, my heart aches when I think about what that house used to look like before it was broken up into condos. That house was on a tour. We had been in that house, and it breaks my heart. Just breaks my heart to know what was done. And again, that's not before LPC, but that's just something I wanted to share with the community when we think about what was in there to what's been done now. So we encourage you to adhere to what was there before. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I want to make sure that the owners are aware that historic preservation runs from the local level up to the federal level. And when you look at the statutes that govern historic preservation on all three levels, they all start out with look back at your history, keep your culture, know where you came from so you know where you're going, and also tourism. Tourism is a big thing on all three levels for historic preservationists. To that extent, all of them, LPC, city level throughout New York State, and the other areas in the counties upstate, the state itself, State Historic Preservation Office, and the federal government have programs for historic preservation tax credits. Raise your hand if you are owner at 875 St. Mark's and you're aware of the preservation tax credits. No, okay, bad. You gotta talk to people. Okay, this area is considered mostly a distressed census tract. Unlike Prospect Heights, where people are a little bit wealthier, over here, we're not as wealthy. So to help with historic preservation, the state gives substantial historic preservation tax credits. If you tell the state what you're doing to your property, they will give you a 20% tax credit if it's eligible stuff. Then there's an additional 20% tax credit on work you do on your historic property from the feds, and you run that application through the state. But since nobody in the building is talking to the folks in the community board to let them know what's available, you're struggling and floundering around and wasting a lot of money when the planning wasn't done out the gate. So here you are throwing good money after bad.
We are just trying to repair so essentially most of the people who bought in the building, we all signed our purchase agreements around the same time. And then we were given a punch list, a promised punch list from the sponsor of everything that they were going to do, including these violations. And then it took us all like about a year to close because there supposedly were remedying these violations. It was over a year for me. And also might I add, most of us were first-time buyers at the time. So we were definitely duped without knowing, and all of our, like, everybody had an attorney doing their due diligence prior. So all these things were hidden. And then obviously we're not trying to ask for forgiveness for something that we did. We are trying to remedy the most essential ones, violations, but at the same time, we're also not rich people where like a $30,000 assessment is something that I can just pull out of my pocket. And it goes for everybody in the building. It took us forever, and there was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on behalf of other, two other owners who were going between Landmarks and Department of Buildings, trying to find out the way for us to rectify these things so we can actually put things right and get our C of O and not keep having issues with violations and notices being put on our building door. I just wanted to set that straight. Like, we did not ask for the mailbox to be there. We did not ask for them to eliminate the arches or the bays. And obviously for somebody who is not, like, for me, I appreciate the beauty of it and I am all for preservations, but for me, it was not obvious that there were things done inappropriately to the point where, to the tune of having to tear out a whole side of the building. And we were promised, we have the punch lists from all of our separate closing documents saying that everything was going to be done. And then this company just disappeared. And, but if you Google them, actually, there are bigger projects that they skipped down on. And it turned out that they were like owned by a shell company from another country. So we all got put into a pretty precarious situation for very many years now. And then one other thing I wanted to correct is that we all signed our purchase agreement. So they started, I guess they were working on the building like from 2012 or whatever. All of us signed purchase agreements in 2014 with punch lists to be addressed. And then again at closing in like second half of 2015 is when most of us closed on our condo. So it was like a very long and painful process. And I, as a first-time buyer, was not aware that it would be so easy for them to skip out on all the work. And I think everybody else in the building was of the same mindset.
And can I just add something to that, if I may, Ms. Tyus? I have great respect for the history and the details of architecture. I pride myself on being a very sensitive architect who is also very concerned about historic preservation. And that's why the clients asked me to come and represent them, because I've worked with Landmarks for 30 years and I've done very, very detailed projects. The issue here is that despite the fact that it's a beautiful building, and I mourn the loss of the details and the fact that this, and I actually I walked into the building next door. I knocked on the door, and the owner of the building, the sister building of this complex, allowed me to walk through. I was just blown away by the woodwork, the detail, the stained glass, the wainscoting. It was just amazing. You don't see anything like that anymore, and I mourn that intensely. But here I am now, 7 years later, basically trying to help these people who were stuck. They were not responsible for anything that is currently on the building. They're living in the building. They're trying to get their C of O. They want to resolve the issues, but to have to go backwards at this point, you can't undo what was done without significant damage to the people who were actually affected to begin with. So it becomes a moral dilemma. Do you punish the people who were punished to begin with, or do you try to move forward, accept the responsibility that this happened, try to prevent it in the future? And I always, when a client comes to me and asks me whether or not they can remove historical fabric, I'll tell them that would be a horrible thing to do. It would be a catastrophe, and it would ruin the character of this building, that whatever period that building represents.
Okay, Mr. Cohen, I don't want to cut you off, but I believe I'll get your email and send it to you. There is a course coming up for brokers, actually, but I think it would cover architects as well, where you can learn about the benefits and the requirements for historic preservation. And as far as I know, there are options available to owners who are stuck, as you describe it, and have a substantial financial burden to meet to restore their property to historic preservation standards. There are grants available. It sounds like no one is doing any research on this. You'd rather come in and say, look, this happened, and we just want you to forgive. But I want to hear some more from the committee members on this. It's not my decision alone. So I want to hear from committee members. I see Najani Granville's hand is up, and also Mr. Vicconi. Anybody in the chat? Ms. Granville, would you please proceed, and then Mr. Vicconi?
You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sitting here shaking my head because I don't understand how people move in. And if you look at all of the buildings on that block, they're so beautiful. That building has stuck out like a sore thumb for the last, 4 or 5 years. Every time I went to a block party there, I'm looking at this building and I'm saying, well, what the hell is going on? Because it doesn't look like anything there. Yes, they have made a financial investment, but think about all of the people who've been there all this time, who took care of their property, and they didn't go to any block association meetings. Somebody could have told them about the tax credit program. They didn't reach out to any of the neighbors. I don't understand. You just move in, but when you're having a problem, you don't even think about reaching out to your nearest neighbors to ask them what they could do, to ask them why their building doesn't look like the one that you're living in. And I'm sure Shirley Mondesu was on the call. She's the president of the Block Association. I'm sure they were horrified to see how that building was taking their property values down. I just don't understand. And it doesn't set a good precedent, because if we allow it, then that means the next time somebody comes along and says, oh, we have a series of mistakes, landmarks will look at us and say, well, you let them do it, so why not the next folks? It's not good at all. And I'm not happy to hear that nobody reached out. There's a Block Association right there. They didn't reach out to the board either. And Shirley Mondesu, if you're listening, I would like you to speak, because I'm sure you were horrified as a homeowner.
Thank you, Ms. Granville. Mr. Vicconi, I want to give Mr. Atkins, are you on the line? I don't see you. What is going on?
Yes, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Guy, I don't know your last name.
Cohn, K-O-H-N.
Mr. Cohn, thank you for coming out. I'm not going to waste time. Everyone who spoke from the board basically echoed my feelings over, under, around, and through. Ms. Young from China, Crown Heights North Association, made the point that the level of detail in these buildings, which you said you saw, or I'm not sure if you did, particularly the wainscoting, the parquet floors, and then the stained glass. But I viewed this house and the houses on this block from an entirely different perspective. I would say that I was aware of the houses on this block from 1956. See, I grew up around the corner, and I live around on the other block on Bergen Street. And there's a phrase that's used now, demolition by neglect. That is basically, in my opinion, what is kind of happening on St. Mark's. One of the houses, for some reason, was totally gutted and removed. There was a huge gap. And then it was replaced with a hideous house. I don't have to point it out. If you walk down the block, there's something that has no context to all the other houses. The pictures that you provided, they're ailanthus trees growing alongside of the house. I want to believe that one of my childhood friends lived in this house back in the late 50s. And the way the portal to the house where they put the house number up, that is just disgusting. All the houses had a 1 foot or 18-inch high white stone wall that ran the length of all those houses down to the mansion across the street from the Children's Museum. People who, and the lady who spoke, who was one of the owners, they wanted to come into that block because the houses were ornate and beautiful. But they never considered how they got to be that way. And it's just a total desecration. And I've been watching this happen for at least 20 years. And I'm saying to myself, who is taking care of this? And I knew about landmarks because my church went before landmarks, not the same exact one. But it seems in certain communities, certain things are more flexible than others. And what's been happening here is just atrocious. It has to stop somewhere. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome, Mr. Atkins. I believe we will have Mr. Vacconi next, and then Caitlin Henderson, who's an owner who asked in the chat to speak. Mr. Vacconi, and then Caitlin Henderson.
My comments will be brief. I just wanted to express sympathy to the owners and regret the position that they're in. Unfortunately, the board has to be concerned about the maintenance of its historic districts forever in the future, for the future going forward. And by supporting the legalization of changes to the approved plans here, we'd effectively be giving license to any future developer to do the same thing, to shortcut the approved plans to save some money and then seek legalization later. And it just doesn't work. It's not a precedent that we really can set. So it's not without sympathy to your situation that I would say I just couldn't support legalizing these changes either. As difficult as it is, I hope you kind of at least can understand where we're coming from. The historic districts need to be preserved, and this is how we preserve them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vacconi. Is Caitlin Henderson still want to speak?
Yes. Thank you very, very much for allowing me to just speak on behalf of the building. I'm going to try to say this as eloquently as possible. I first of all want to say that I respect every single thing that has been said here, and I agree with you. So I appreciate your passion for preserving the block, because it is a gorgeous block, which is one of the reasons why I was drawn to purchase a property in this building. For those of you who are very familiar with the block and witnessed the demolition by neglect before we came on the scene, because that is when the demolition by neglect occurred, I'm very sorry. and I can only imagine how that feels. From my perspective, I, arrived to this building for the first time at an open house, and was told about all of the privileges and benefits of the Landmark building. And we were told, and again, due diligence, and I do understand that. I'm not completely naive, but we were sold a Landmark property and told that things were being done up to code, and they were working on some things, and everything was going to be handled and everything was going to be taken care of. We even had that in our closing documents, that these things where everything was going to be taken care of. It wasn't really brought to our attention that things were done incorrectly until we realized that our TCO, we were unable to renew our TCO and our certificate of occupancy, and there were problems with that. And that is when we came to realize that these Landmark, there were certain things done on the property that were not up to code as far as Landmark approval, which was extremely disappointing for us because we did not realize that they had cut so many corners. Unfortunately, we're in this situation where there were 7 owners. I'm a New York City school teacher. I've been working on this case myself personally for 3 years. Guy has just come on in the last few months, even pre-pandemic, because we're not just trying to plead to you because it's a pandemic and times are tough. We've been working on this for years. I personally have gone and spoken to Ira Gluckman, the borough commissioner at the time. I scheduled a meeting. I spoke to him. I've been working on this personally for a very long time. The cost of what it would cost to bring things back to before Bose Gilead did what he did to the building, I know would just be, I know that we wouldn't be able to, it would be very, very difficult for us to do it. And I appreciate you bringing to our attention that there are options for owners who are stuck in this situation, and we can absolutely pursue those. But I do plead to you to understand that we are just regular lay people who have been put in this situation, and the damage that has been done and the changes that have been done that are not up to code was not our doing. And if we could go back in time and do it ourselves and make sure that it was done the right way, we absolutely would have, which is why we've hired Guy to try to fix it. We want to be in good standing. We want to do as much as we can to get this property to Landmark status, but it has to be something that we can actually do.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. I believe that there's a lack of information coming to you through the city agencies that you've been working with. I'm surprised and appalled that Department of Buildings did not tell you to seek the grants and tax credits that are available for historic preservation. Talking preservation, not renovation, okay? So those things are still there. And I hear the baby in the background. I understand the detriment that doing this kind of retrofit can do to one's wallet. But I had said to you, there's a grant. Mr. Cohn is saying he can't even take some screws out of the doors that are there and switch the glass one to the front. So it corresponds to the rest of the theme in the neighborhood. It won't even do little things like that. So I question the sincerity of the pleas for just let us put this behind us. We had to do it this way because we ran out of money. If you won't even switch the doors and all, that's a couple of screws, taking them out and putting that glass, a top door in the front and putting the solid wooden door second. Little things like that. Won't even try. So I'm not hearing, yes, we're going to look at grants. Yes, we're going to look for homeowner credits. Yes, we're going to check for grants on the state level. Yes, we're going to check for grants. So I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing we want you to forgive us because we made a mistake. We didn't check carefully enough. So sorry. So sad, too bad. Just give us a pass. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, Ms. Tyus, may I just mention one thing regarding the door? We looked at the idea of switching them. They're two different sized doors. They're not exactly the same. So that would mean rebuilding both doors to switch them completely. Now, we had talked it over with Landmarks and we thought it would be easy. We were willing to switch the doors. That would be not a problem. But then we measured them and found that they were two different sizes. So that's why we asked if we could keep.
I'm not going to take you through the 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch differences between those two doors because the time is not going to allow us to do that.
Fair enough.
But I suspect that the size difference could easily be ameliorated. I'm not going to go any further. I'm sure there are other people who want to weigh in on this conundrum in which you as our neighbors, Ms. Shine, Ms. Henderson, you find yourselves. My sympathies are with you. I've had bad contractors come into my home and screw up stuff that cost me tens of thousands of dollars to fix. So I understand. Are there any other comments on this request?
Yes, Ms. Collins would like to comment.
Ms. Tyus, you also have Ms. Mondesir who wants to speak, and Princess James wants to speak.
Okay, I know Ms. Mondesir is the head of the St. Mark's Independent Block Association. So Ms. Collins, I would like Ms. Mondesir to speak now, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Go right ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Ms. Mondesir, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Shirley.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Can I be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, I'm the president of the Block Association, have been for some time. And we always try to reach out to everyone in the block. I'd like to sort of speak about the mailbox because all the mail on most of the houses is put in through the mail slot. Okay, and the mailbox does not go along with the beauty of the mail slots that we have and enhancing our historical block. I really don't agree with that. However, I did look at a place where the mailbox could possibly be moved so it wouldn't be standing right there like in front of the house. I'm asking that you reach out to me. We have meetings and you are certainly welcome to join, and anything that we can do, I'm here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next? Did I skip over anybody?
Hi,
Who wants to speak next?
Ms. Collins, am I
Okay.
next?
I believe Ms. Ben James had asked before, and then you're
Okay.
next. Then you're
Hi.
next, Ms. Collins. Go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. You know what? I'm a homeowner and I sit back and I heard everything that was said. First, I cannot understand. You had lawyers. Everybody's saying they had individual lawyers. It seems like your lawyers have not done due diligence with you. First, how can you sign off on contracts knowing that the developers did not complete all the work and there was no money left in escrow to fix work that is needed? But now you're coming and asking us to retroactively bless what did wrong. I'm a first homeowner too. Most of us who own buildings or own homes were once considered first-time homeowners. So I'm hearing that I'm a first-time homeowner, we all once were.
I would just like to tell you and reiterate what Caitlin said.
No, but what I'm
sorry.
saying, money, one of the things that I learned, money should have been left in escrow, because I cannot understand that you guys sign off knowing that all the work wasn't done. Promise you, he was giving you a promissory note to fix something when you guys are paid. That should not have happened. So I think you guys need to go back and speak to your lawyers, because money should have been left in escrow. Because when I bought my building, there was a problem like that, and I make sure there were money in an escrow account to fix what needed to be fixed in my building before I signed off. And at that time, I was a first-time homeowner, knows nothing about buying house, but I did my research. And that's what it's all about, doing your research. And like Ms. Monderson said, you bought into a community where people are living, but you never take the time to get to know the people in the community, to ask questions. You just decided to buy. Now, when things go wrong, these same people in the community you want to come back to ask for, to help come back to an act for solution. And I don't think that is fair to us, because we all follow the rules and the laws that govern home ownership in our community. And I don't think we should, that's what had happened to you. I am sorry. I'm a homeowner too, but I don't think we should bless what's going on right now. Thank you,
Thank you, Ms. Ben James. I believe Ms. Collins is next.
Hello. Ms. Curtis, I think some people are not muted and there's a lot of noise. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you, Ms. Collins. I'm not hearing the noise that you're hearing. Whoever's not muted.
There are a lot of people like Guy and a few other people who are not muted, and I think that's where the noise is coming from.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Will everyone please mute themselves so Ms. Collins can make her statement? Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Collins.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to agree with you and everybody else and Princess, because the reason why I raised my hand is I wanted to speak directly to Ms. Henderson. And I guess to Guy and everybody else, who's the other woman, Kristen or Diana, and all the other homeowners there at that St. Mark's Avenue. You have just been presented with some options that you said you didn't know about, as far as local, state, and federal funding to get this work completed that would, help you out. But I don't hear a sigh of relief in your voices. It's like you're still not interested in going out and pursuing that. I've not heard anything like that come. I'm speaking right now. Thank you.
It's in the chat.
I'm speaking right now, but I'm not hearing your voice, I said. I'm not hearing. Are you listening to what I'm saying? I do not hear that. I'm not reading the chat. I'm reading your voice. I'm reading your expression. And there still seems to be, well, I don't hear, well, we're going to go and pursue that. That's very good to know. That's going to be very helpful. I don't hear any of that coming from you all. So,
I actually put in the chat exactly that, ma'am.
Excuse me, would you let me finish, please? And I think the chair has to recognize you. The chair has to recognize you to speak.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, so you have to understand that you have a responsibility as a homeowner, just like Ms. Princess said. I have that responsibility as a homeowner, and like everybody is telling you, this is a landmark community, and we have to dig our heels in, because there's everybody coming in wanting us to break the rules and let them do what they want to do. It's your responsibility to make sure things are in order before you put your handcuff on a piece of paper. You just don't listen to developers or anybody saying this is going to be done, and that's going to be done without making sure that it's done. So there are a lot of options for you right now. And I don't hear anybody expressing the gratitude that you've just found out about that information.
I actually wrote in the chat earlier, and I'm
Excuse
sorry you
me.
didn't see that. I will read it to you. I said, we, the homeowners, would very much appreciate if you could share more information about the grant so we can be sure to be moving in the right direction. I wrote that earlier because I did not want to interrupt.
Okay, well, right now, I'm not hearing that being said. I hear the argument still being made that you should be forgiven as opposed to going out and looking. And maybe it's not you, but I'm speaking to whoever's been talking, and that's what I've been hearing. Okay? So that's my feel on it, and I just want to make that my point.
Ms.
I
Collins,
don't-
can I
I'm not
respond?
sure. Yeah, please.
So I'm sorry if it didn't come across that I wasn't appreciative for the grants information, because I did mention that I wasn't aware of that, and I am appreciative to know about that because we're going to need it, you know. And the other thing that I want to add is that I think that we are open to listening to, you know, to coming to some kind of agreement, or, you know, we're not asking for like full forgiveness. We realize that the developers made a lot of mistakes. We didn't realize it at the time. I assure you that. I promise you that. When we came to that property, I had no idea that they had, you know, done what they did to the side of that building. The first time I ever came to that building was at that open house. I had been on the block before. I had taken my nephew to the Children's Museum once before, and I admired the block a year or two before I ever went to that open house. So I realized that, but I did not know that they had done what they did to the side of the house. And like I said earlier, for those of you that witnessed that demolition and saw the change from what was originally there to what those contractors did before we even came onto the scene, that must have been horrible for you. And I feel terrible about that. So I'm not asking for forgiveness for myself, because I wasn't aware that they had done what they did and demolished, you know, the bays the way that they did. I don't want to speak for Guy and for Dina, but I will say myself, I agree. You know, if there are some things that we can do and apply for grants and switch the doors and make a few, you know, switch the mailboxes, change those things out, and we can afford it, and it's something that we can actually get done, I'm willing to do it. I own the largest unit in the building, so I have the biggest stake in that building. And like I said, I've been putting a lot of time and effort into trying to get the building into good standing. We don't want to be bad neighbors. We don't want to.
Okay, so then I guess the next conversation needs to be, because we've heard that and we heard your point of view. I think we need to move this on, and I think what you all need to be asking about is where to get those applications.
Ms.
That's what
Collins,
I'm not
thank you
hearing.
very much.
So
Thank you
you
very
should
much.
ask for that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Collins, and thank
You're
you, Ms.
welcome.
Henderson. I'm truly sympathetic, and I'm trying to figure out ways that we can get you the information you need to pursue.
That would be
This
wonderful.
evening's business, at this point, I have to ask the Land Use Committee members for a motion on this item, unless there are any other comments or questions. I ask for a motion on the item unless there are any other comments or questions.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we not support the legalization of the project as presented.
Seconded.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor not to support the project as presented, and I have a second. Are there any other questions on the motion that's on the floor before I call the roll? Hearing none, I'm going to proceed with the roll call. This is a motion not to support the project. So a yes means no. 75 St. Mark's Avenue. Princess Ben James. Princess Ben James.
Gotta unmute.
Okay, are we voting yes for no, or how are we doing this?
This is a motion to withhold support.
Yes.
So if you vote yes, you're voting against the project.
Yes.
Okay. John Buckholz. He's not here. Robert Callahan.
Aye.
Janet Collins.
Yes.
Nora Daniel.
Yes.
You're so faint. I think you said yes. James Ellis.
Yes.
I believe he's gone. Kathy Islin.
Yes.
Najani Graham.
Could Janet Collins maybe mute herself? I think that's where we're hearing all the interference.
Ms. Collins, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Deborah Young, mute yourself, please. Let's see, up to Najani Granville. Najani Granville. You're muted. I believe you're muted. You're muted. Okay. Nod your head up and down. Okay, that's a yes. Okay. Zazima Jordan. Peter Crassus. Sarah Lazur.
Yes.
Sherry Norton, not here. Robert Puka. Adam Sachs, not here. Meredith Staten. Ethel Tyus, yes. Gib Vaconi. Gib Vaconi. He's gone. Is Gib Vaconi still on the line?
He left the chat.
Okay. He's in the chat? I'm sorry. Trying not to miss anybody. He's gone. Okay. Here's a Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Deborah Young.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
What
I'm
did Miss
counting
Jordan
up.
say? What did Miss Jordan say?
Yes, Jen.
She said yes. Okay. I didn't hear you before. Thank you. So we missed Gib Vaconi. Yes. Okay. Let me count up the votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12. We have 12 yes, no abstentions, and no negative votes. Motion carries. And I would invite you to look at options from LPC's grants, New York Landmarks Conservancy, New York State Historic Preservation Office, Preservation League of New York. They all have grants. In addition to the grants, double check that your census tract is still considered distressed. If so, you have a 20% homeowner's tax credit available to you. If any of the units in the building are rented, you will have an additional 20% federal tax credit available to you for eligible items on both of those two different lists. State list is a little different from the federal list. For work that you do on your building, take pictures before, send it to the state. They bless it, you get the work done, send them pictures, or tell them afterwards when the work is complete, and you get a letter back to take the cost off of your taxes. Okay, you can get to me, eetias@gmail.com. I'll try to answer questions. If you want to have a homeowners association meeting, I will plan to attend if you let me know. But this is where we are now. And this is the best we can do at this time. Thank you.
Possible for me to just ask one more clarifying question before you guys move on to the next thing? I respect your decision. My question just as far as, is there any way that we can continue the conversation? I understand how you feel, but there are a number of different items that would need to be repaired. Is there any way that we can continue the conversation or explore the option of some of the items being addressed and some of them being agreed upon?
I don't see where LPC is helping you. And so you know, going forward, Department of Buildings and LPC are not friendly to each other. And I'm surprised and appalled that Department of Buildings wasn't more helpful to you, and also appalled that LPC wasn't more helpful to you.
I
So
was
I
under the
will,
impression that LPC was going to negotiate with us on some of these outstanding issues.
they didn't tell you about the grants? No grants? Nobody mentioned grants to you. So
Not-
that part alone is enough, okay?
So I guess my question is, as far as next steps, as far as the community board goes, and I appreciate your email address. I jotted it down, and I do plan to contact you, and I do plan to contact Shirley Mondesir. I'm happy to meet you and happy to continue conversations. I just want to know, as far as owners, what our next step would be aside from applying for the grants, just in continuing the conversation with the community board. Like where would we go from, with being in good standing with you, because we know that we need to get your approval in order to move forward.
Okay, just to be clear, I'm sorry, Ms. Collins, I'm speaking.
I'm so sorry.
Just to correct the vote count, we have 11 yes. Okay, we have 11 yes, not 12. Thank you, Ms. Daniel. So your next step is a hearing at LPC. The community board will be sending a letter to LPC capturing tonight's decision. Where you go from there, it's hard to say. They'll have our advisory opinion, they'll make their own decision. And if I were you.
So ultimately, and then Guy, please chime in if I'm just sorry. This is all just really so new to me, and I'm trying to just understand the whole process. That you will put in your recommendation and your vote to LPC, and then Guy, I believe we have an LPC hearing scheduled. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. And I'll explain to you after the meeting what the next steps are.
Well, your date is the 17th?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate everyone's time, and thank you so much for your input. And thank you for listening to our situation.
Yeah, and let LPC know that you're asking them for information on their programs. They should be tying you in to the other preservationist organizations in the city. They all offer grants. New York Landmarks Conservancy, Municipal Arts Society, they all offer grants. So if you piece this thing together, nobody's just going to throw money at you. You have to go after it.
No,
okay. Okay. So
gotta work for it and research.
I'm sorry this has happened to you, and I'll help you however I can as an individual. These things change, these programs change from year to year, but you really should just do a Google search for historic preservation grants. Simple enough. You'll be amazed at what pops up. Okay, and they all have deadlines. Some of them are coming up. So take advantage of the technology to hunt for the money, to do what needs to be done to bring your building into compliance with LPC's codes, DOB's codes. Without a certificate of occupancy, your insurance is going to go in the toilet. So, a lot of stuff to be done there, but it teamwork. If you have an association in the building, there's 7 of you. Are all the units occupied?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys got to team up, parcel it out, and get the work done. Don't expect Cohen to do it all by himself. Seriously. Okay, the lawyers, you should go back to them and slap them upside the head and get some of your money back since they didn't escrow for you. Okay, a lot of the services you deserved were not provided. So and this is what happens. So I'm sorry this has happened. But I'm going to move on. I'm trying to look back at the agenda for tonight. I think we cleared our items. And if you want to put off going to LPC for a hearing with a negative recommendation waiting in the wings, and try to get some of this together and come back with a much shorter list of things, maybe it could be reconsidered. I'm not sure. But that's the best I can say for what the situation is now.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus.
Yes. All
I
right.
appreciate it.
So committee members, is there anything else we need to cover?
Ms. Tyus, this is Kathy Island. May I say something quickly? Ms. Tyus?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I know everybody's been on the line a long time and we've discussed some important things. I just want to mention that on November 10th, there's a very important meeting of the Housing Committee, which will probably discuss an issue that has real implications for land use as we discuss affordable senior housing. So if people on the Land Use Committee are available to attend the Housing Committee, I think it will be very informative to some discussions that we may need to have going forward. And it would be great if people could attend that meeting. Thank you very much.
What time is that meeting?
I believe the meeting's on the very, very useful Community Board 8 calendar, which thanks to whoever pointed that out to me, that you can see all the meetings and get all the links on that calendar. Ms. Tyus, do you know what time the meeting is? I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
6:15.
6:15. Thank you. It's on Tuesday, I believe, and it will discuss way into the land use issues. So it would be great to have people getting as much information as they can before our next meeting to discuss those issues. Thank you.
Okay. So unless there's something else, do I see, Kathy, you made your statement. Are there any other notices or announcements, committee members?
Ms. Granville has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Granville.
You might want to mention for people like Sarah and other people who wanted to know when Richard Barak would be helping us, you may want to mention Monday.
Okay, I don't have my calendar open in front of me.
It's November 9th, Monday, November 9th. I believe we're starting at 5.
Yes, it's early.
It's on our calendar. We're starting at 6, Michelle. 6 p.m. on November 9th. Okay. 6 p.m. on a WebEx. It's on our calendar.
Thank you, Ms.
Can you be clear? What is that for Monday? There's a lot of noise happening. Can you repeat everything, please?
Monday is a presentation by the Borough President's Land Use Director, Richard Barak, on Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. He'll be doing a PowerPoint presentation on that process and how it's going to affect certain parcels in this community district. Okay? All right, so.
Can that information be sent out to us, or has it been sent out?
It has been sent out. It was sent out 2 days ago to both the Land Use Committee and both housing advocacy Google groups. It has been sent out already.
Oh, I have a question. Is that training available to just the public at large?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to let some people know who I think would like to know.
Absolutely. All of the community board meetings are open. So please come. The housing committee meeting is a pickup on HPD scoping for senior housing near the M Crown area. So that would have been on our agenda tonight, but we expected a item that eventually dropped out, 285 Kingston, which should come before us in December. And we'll have that review at that time. And going forward into December, City Planning is going to be presenting on 2 different dates on their population and gentrification data, population demographics, and then the follow-up meeting, also directed at MCRAM, will be on capital planning. So we'll be looking at that too. So we'll be busy over the next week and a half and the first week or 2 in December. Full board meeting next Thursday. Hope to see you all there then. Unless there's something else, I ask for a motion to close the meeting.
I have one last question, Ms. Tyus. Julia, do you recollect what date that email was that came out, so I can go back and look for it?
Ms. Collins, I posted it in the chat and I'm sending it out again within the next 2 minutes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Again, unless there's something else, I ask for a motion to
Ms.
close. the meeting.
Granville had her hand up.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ms. Granville.
I just want to say, remind people that in this city, you're penalized for what you do not know. So when you have a chance to speak to people and get information, reach out to people, read things. When you have a chance to be on a mailing list, as inclusive as ours is, take advantage of it. Because you are penalized for what you don't know.
Ms. Tyus, I make a motion to end the meeting, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.